tracers, fire forming your ammo, muzzle brakes, and barrels. This week on Mail Call Mondays. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Well, we've got a bunch of great questions today, and we're going to start off with a question about tracers. Sean asks, address the rumor of tracers being bad for your barrel. Well, try as I might, I couldn't locate any of the military studies done on tracers and barrel life, so I don't really have any facts or figures to give to you, but here's some things that I want you to consider. First of all, tracers they have a great purpose in a military capacity because they allow you to mark targets and they allow machine gunners to see where their fire is going downrange. Tracers are really interesting because they allow you to see the path of the bullet without any extra devices. You can see it with the naked eye. Anyone who has been on a military machine gun range has seen those tracers hit the berm and go ripping off in all kinds of directions. So it's really a great tool to allow you to visualize the ballistics of the round downrange. Really, tracers don't have a whole lot of purpose on the civilian or law enforcement side of things because you really don't need to mark targets. You don't need to send out high volumes of fire like that. Really, the only thing that they are useful for is just the joy of seeing that red streak going downrange. Tracers do pose some problems though, because you are firing incendiary downrange. They do tend to catch things on fire. Anybody who has been on a machine gun range for any amount of time has seen when you've had to stop fire, you've had to cease fire, make the range go cold, so range control can go downrange and put out fires. If you're playing around with tracers, you need to be cognizant of what the conditions are downrange and have the ability to put out fires if you start one. Most civilian ranges don't have the ability to cease fire and then drop some HE delay rounds down to shake up the ground and put fires out. So, keep that in mind. Tracers and barrel life, though, tracers are supposed to be designed to either burn very lightly or only start their burn after they exit the barrel. Barrel heat can affect this a little bit, and if you're shooting through a hot barrel, you can actually start those tracers burning inside the barrel instead of after they exit. Additionally, you have a very wide variety of tracers out there. It used to be you only had military tracers, but there are civilian companies that are making pistol tracers and other types of tracers out there now, so there really isn't a single type of tracer or single type of answer. Additionally, in different tracer rounds, you may have different compounds that are causing that glowing streak that you see. In my opinion, anything extra that you are burning in your barrel is going to shorten the barrel life and is not going to be great for the extended life of that barrel. We were always told in the military to keep tracers out of the precision rifles, just really because we had very few reasons to run them. Occasionally you might run into a situation where you want to mark a target for mortars or machine guns, etc., for adjacent units, but it's not like you would go out and just burn tons and tons of rounds through the tracers. In fact, when we would shoot ball 50 caliber ammo through the Barrett, we'd end up delinking belts and tossing the tracers into a big huge pile because we never shot the tracers through the M82s. So military, they want to keep the tracers out of the precision rifles. Again, I don't have any studies to tell you not to do this, but for me, I would keep tracers out of precision rifles. You don't have the chrome line bore that you have in M16s or M4s to limit the damage that the tracers are going to do to your barrel steel. And you want to keep that rifle as precise as possible for as long as possible. Now, one or two tracers is not going to destroy your rifle, but if you go out and you decide you're going to shoot 500 tracers, you may do some damage to the barrel life. So keep that in mind when you're playing with tracers. Philip sent us a question about resizing ammo. He says, after seeing your Ma 10 barrel install, it got me thinking. I loaded about 500 hand loads for my Remington 700. All rounds are fireform neck sized only to my rifle. If I change the barrel, will these hand loads still fit my rifle? I hope I won't have to do full length resize for all of them. Keep up the good work. Well, Philip, it's all going to depend. Usually, if you're dealing with a factory Remington barrel, that chamber is going to be a little bit looser than what you would find in a good high quality match barrel. So if you have those cartridges just neck sized and they're fire formed to the chamber in a factory Remington barrel, and then you put a high quality match barrel on, chances are those cartridges are not going to chamber in that rifle. So if you got a good amount of ammo loaded up for that rifle, I would make sure that you get a chance to fire that out before you resize that barrel, or I'm sorry, before you change that barrel. Otherwise, you may have to pull down and resize all that ammo, and that's just not going to be any fun. Now, if you are going through a large variety of rifles, like here we have quite a few different 308 rifles. I know that ammo that I have resized for the Remington 700 for the factory chamber, it will not chamber in the match barrel that's on my Accuracy International. However, the reverse is not true. Ammo that has been neck sized for the Accuracy International, I can turn around and fire that in the Remington though, because the Remington chamber is looser than the AI chamber. So it works one way, it doesn't work the other. It's real quick to throw a chamber gauge or a mic on your brass and figure out which one has the tighter chamber, which one has the looser chamber. And then what I would suggest is if you're going to fire form brass and you want to be able to use it in all your rifles, then make sure it's going through the smaller chamber first. I would suggest that when you are hand loading ammo, if you want to be able to use it in a variety of rifles, you find which one has the smallest chamber. You take your reading off of that smallest chamber, you resize your ammo in a full length sizing die, and you crush it down 2,000 smaller than what your smaller chamber is. That ammo will reliably chamber in that smallest rifle, and it should reliably chamber in the loosest rifle that you have. So that'll allow you to size ammo for one chamber and use it in all your different rifles. Now the drawback, of course, is you won't be able to neck size your cartridges. You will have to full length size them every time you resize them, but it'll allow you to keep ammo on stock that you can grab ammo, grab a rifle, and go to the range without worrying about making sure that you have ammo that is loaded specifically for one rifle. Clayton asks us, is setting back a factory Remington barrel to shorten the excessive bullet jump worth the hassle? Who makes the best replacement barrel and a slightly heavier contour for Remington 700, specifically a 308 AAC 20-inch with a 1 in 10 twist? Any advantage to going with 5R rifling and a slightly slower twist while shooting mainly 175 grain and 178 grain bullets? Well, Clayton, first part of your question, I would not recommend setting back a factory Remington 308 barrel. I've looked at it. They have usually excessively long throats, which if you are trying to get anywhere close to seating your bullets to the lands, you really have to seat them so far out that they will not fit in the internal magazine or in any removable magazine systems. Generally what I do is I just load them to mag length and roll. Setting back the barrel is going to be an added expense. Remington hammer forged chrome moly barrels really are kind of hit and miss on the accuracy potential on them. You may get a really good barrel, you may get kind of a really crappy barrel. So in order to go through the expense of that, you're really going to want to look and see what you're dealing with inside of that barrel. If you look at the price of a match barrel blank, good stainless steel blank from Bartlein, Brooks, Rock, any of the number of different barrel manufacturers out there, Krieger, then you'll see that really when you factor in the labor and the cost it's going to have for a gunsmith to install a barrel or even cut back and set back a barrel versus just take a complete barrel blank and install it on your rifle, you're not saving a ton of money. All you're saving really is the cost of the blank. So I would suggest if you decide to do anything, just save an extra couple of bucks and then spend that to rebarrel with a match barrel. Now, as far as which is best, when you get into the top end of barrels, they are really close. You really can't say one is best. What is more important than who you choose when you're choosing top tier manufacturers is who does the work, who actually chambers your barrel, threads it, installs it on the rifle, because that work can have a greater effect on the accuracy of the rifle than the style of rifling or who actually cut the rifling in the barrel. So I would recommend that you shop for a good shop to install the barrel first, and then ask that shop who they like to deal with and who they have barrels on the shelf for. Some of the big shops may keep barrel blanks in stock, and that'll get your job done and out the door quicker. Ross asks, after reading your review of the Accuracy International AE Mark II, you mentioned the barrel was a fast barrel. In fact, the 20-inch test barrel was producing about 30 foot per second faster than your Remington 26-inch barrel. I understand the rifle twist rate, but I feel I'm missing something. Can you please explain? Thanks. Well, Ross, what I meant by that is that when we shot the barrel over a chronograph, I was getting about 30 foot per second faster out of the 20-inch Accuracy International barrel than I was out of the 26-inch factory Remington barrel. And this is with the same load, same bullet, same powder charges, etc. And the reason I believe that is just the Accuracy International barrel is a finer grade barrel. It's a stainless barrel, and it was finished to a higher degree. Remington barrels, the chromoly barrel that I was in fact referencing in this case, they are hammer forged and they really aren't finish lapped. So you can get a fairly rough barrel. Well, if you've ever tried to push a heavy object across a surface, you know that it is generally easier to push a heavy object across a smooth surface than it is to push it across a rough surface. Well, it's the same instance here. It requires more energy to cram that bullet through a rough barrel than it does through a smooth barrel. So that, I believe, is what we were looking at in the difference in the speed. Now, both of those barrels were 1 in 12 twist. The Remington 26-inch was 1 in 12, and the Accuracy International 20-inch was a 1 in 12. So I believe really what we were looking at is the chamber in the AI, and the smoother barrel is just giving us a little bit more speed than the loose chamber and the rough barrel in the Remington. Sean asked us about muzzle brakes. He asked, your last build included a Surefire SOCOM muzzle brake. Would you please discuss the advantages and disadvantages of shooting with a brake, issues with muzzle brake timing, and the differences in muzzle brake design? Thanks for your great contribution to the shooting world, and you're getting great pub in SC. Well, Sean, primarily a muzzle brake assists in reducing recoil. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. When we fire a rifle, we have all those hot gases in the bullet exiting the front of the barrel, and that causes the rifle to go backwards with an equal and opposite force into your shoulder. What a muzzle brake simply does is it's set up to direct as much of the gas as possible to the sides of the rifle instead of out front. And when you are directing, say 30% of the gas to one side, 30% of the gas to the other side, those two 30% cancel each other out and would result in a significant recoil reduction. Now, that's just off the top of my head. I haven't done any testing to tell you how much gas the brakes divert to the side. But brakes, for instance, the JP tactical muzzle brakes have a great effect in reducing recoil. Now, we have just installed the Surefire SOCOM on our Mega Arms Ma 10 build, which is hanging on the wall behind me right now. We haven't got it out to the range and test fired it yet, so I can't tell you how much the Surefire muzzle brake reduction is going to be. But looking at the design, it's a two-port design, or two-baffle design. It should be fairly effective in reducing recoil. Now, we don't get a free lunch in this. One of the side effects of reducing recoil through a muzzle brake is that gas now is coming out of the side. That gas also carries sound energy with it, And that's going to reflect off of objects nearby. It's going to reflect off the ground, and more of that sound energy is going to end up at the shooter's ear instead of going downrange towards the target. So shooting muzzle-braked rifles, the system appears to be louder to the shooter's ear than it would if you were shooting just a plain target crown. Also, shooters to either side of you will experience more blast from the muzzle than you would with a regular target crown. Some brakes are very efficient at directing that gases to the side, and it really makes it miserable for shooters on either side of you. Now, in the competition side of things, that can be great for you because it can assist you in staying on target a whole lot better, and it can be great for you because if it knocks the other shooters out of their bubble and they're no longer concentrating on shooting their rounds downrange, then it can give you an edge. That's not exactly the way I want to win a match, by taking another shooter out of their bubble. I would rather just win it on skill alone. But that's part of the game. I've been on the line and had my bell rung by somebody else's brake before, and you work through it, and it's part of developing your skill as a shooter. But it's something also to keep in mind if you're trying to teach new shooters. You want to space them out a little bit more so that they're not experiencing the effect of each other's muzzle blast. That can really cause a problem, and it can develop a flinch in new shooters. So keep that in mind. As far as installing brakes, instructions that come with your brake should tell you how the brake is timed. Timing a brake is nothing more than when you screw it on, making sure that the ports are facing in the correct directions. If you take a brake that's, for instance, a two-ported brake where it has one port on either side, those ports should be pretty much horizontal to themselves when the rifle is placed straight up and down. When you're timing a brake, you'll want to try to do that with a shim kit, which are nothing more than precision washers that stack up behind the brake to get it to screw on and stop at a specific torque at a specific position. Some guys will try to use crush washers. For some brakes where they have a larger exit hole on the brake, a crush washer may work just fine. If it's a very precise brake and it has a longer length on the brake, then you want to be careful with using crush washers, because if you get that brake cocked to one side or the other, then you may end up with a baffle strike when the bullet tries to exit that end baffle, and that will just really mess up your accuracy and can damage the brake, and it can be a safety issue if you start blowing pieces of copper jacket to the side. So I recommend when you're trying to time a brake, use a shim kit to get it timed out. Pennybags asks, if I ignore barrel cooldown periods, will that lead to reduced barrel life and reduced inherent accuracy down the road? Thanks. Well, in the end, we're working with metal, and metal is less abrasion resistant when it gets really hot. You're going to start wearing out the throat of that barrel as the barrel heats up. My rule of thumb on shooting the rifle is only shoot the rifle as fast as you need to shoot the rifle. Again, we are working with tools. It's no good to me to have a tool that does not accomplish the job that I need to accomplish. But in the same hand, I'm not going to take a tool out and just beat on it trying to wear it out. I look at barrels like I look at the tires on a car. I don't take my car out and do smoky burnouts in the middle of the road just for grins. So I don't take my barrels out and heat them up to cherry red just for grins. But if I need to get somewhere quickly, or if I need to stop quickly, then I'm going to do so. If I'm shooting my barrel and a stage requires that I put 10 rounds down range as fast as possible, or 20 rounds down range as fast as possible in order to win the stage, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to worry about barrel life secondary to accomplishing the stage. Now, if you're on a nice, cool range, and we're trying to engage precision targets at greater than 200, 300 yards, you're not really going to have to worry about barrel cooldown time. Shoot the rifle as accurately as you can possibly shoot it. That's going to require time between shots. When you finish a magazine, since we're working with precision rifles that have 5 and 10 round magazines, when you finish a magazine, take some time to get a drink, relax, stretch as you reload your magazine, and then get down behind the rifle. A lot of guys use the touch rule of thumb. If you can't hold your hand on the barrel, then the barrels become too hot and you need to let it cool down. I think that's kind of a good gauge. If your rifle is heating up really quickly because of the ambient air conditions, or it's heating up because of your rate of fire, then you may need to back off and let it cool down a little bit. Hotter days will require more cool down time just because that air is not able to carry the heat away from the barrel. But in the end, do what you need to do. Replace the barrel when it burns out. With a 308, you're not really worried about barrel life as much as you would be with, for instance, a fast 243. So keep in mind what you're shooting and what you're trying to accomplish. Rogelio, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, I'm currently in the process of rebarreling my 700 with a match grade barrel, but since the barrel is already threaded, I'm forced to use the same size barrel lug. My question is it worth me finding an aftermarket lug in stainless steel or chrome moly or the same size, or is the factory lug good enough since I won't be truing the action? Well, the factory lug may be good enough, but what you need to look for in a barrel lug is that it is true and parallel. You want the front surface and the back surface of that lug to be parallel to each other. This way, when you screw the barrel onto the action, it doesn't jack the barrel one way or the other and act like a wedge, taking your barrel off the center line of the action. Now, if you're not truing the action, then hopefully that front face of the receiver is true to the center line of the action. That's part of the operation in truing. The face of the receiver is cut to be true to the axis of the threads in the receiver, and everything is trying to be cut true to the center line of the receiver. So if you're going to replace that lug, then try to find a lug that's the correct thickness to headspace your barrel properly and is parallel and true. To me, it doesn't matter if it's stainless steel, chrome moly, etc. It needs to be parallel. So what you may want to do is you may want to take that factory lug to a machine shop and see if they will surface grind it to be parallel and take the minimum amount of material off, and then put that on and see if that factory lug will allow that barrel to headspace properly. If not, then at least you'll have a measurement to go from, and you may be able to custom order a lug that is ground parallel specifically for the thickness that you need. So I hope that helps out with your barrel lug question. And our last question of the day, Michael asks, John, back on 5.3 you announced you'll be posting the remainder of the hats and patches. Did you get that stuff posted? I checked 8541tactical.com throughout last weekend, but didn't see them. Actually, no, we didn't get them posted up. We had some issues with the PayPal system that I'm using to track the inventory on them because I don't really want to oversell the patches. It takes a little while for us to get patches and hats made up, so I don't want to back order those things right now. We will be getting that up a little bit later this week. If you'll go to our website, 8541tactical.com, and click on the link to the store, we will have those listed as soon as possible. So keep checking back throughout the week and we'll get them up there quickly. But we only have a few left. I think we have something like 15 patches left and maybe 5 hats left. So when we get them up there, they're gonna go fast. So make sure you keep checking and you get your order in as quickly as possible. That's all the questions we have for this week. Thank you very much again for sending your questions in. It's what makes this show work, and hopefully I've got some answers out to you guys. And I know we can't answer every question on the show. We are limited by our time and the time that I have to actually produce the show. But please keep sending your questions in. If we didn't answer your question this week, send it to us again next week, and hopefully we will eventually get to it. Now, I posted a question on our Facebook page. If we do another build series, what should we do? Please go over there, check that out, weigh in on that question. I am listening. We don't have anything pinned down just yet. But in the next couple of weeks, I hope to start talking to manufacturers and see if we can get some manufacturer support on what our next build project is going to be. So check that out. If you've liked this show, please give me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you're a subscriber, thank you very much. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It helps us out, it helps our numbers, and it shows those manufacturers that you guys like what we're doing and you're regular viewers of the show. Until next week, get out and shoot!